What if the things you struggle with aren't signs of weakness, but signs you've been trying to survive something deeper? What if your habits, your patterns, were never the real problem, but your attempt to ease a pain you couldn't explain? Dr. Gabor Maté doesn't ask, why the behavior? He asks, why the pain? And when you start asking that, everything shifts. This isn't about judgment, it's about understanding yourself in a way you never have before.
If you've ever felt unheard, unseen, or like the wounds from your past still hold you back, you're not alone. This space is for you. Here, we heal, we grow, and we rediscover who we truly are. Beyond the pain, beyond the past. And if you're ready to step into your healing journey and finally embrace your authentic self, hit that subscribe button. Because your inner child matters, and together, we can rewrite your story. And before we dive in, I want you to affirm this. Drop "I am healing" in the comments. Let's remind ourselves, and each other.
Well, so here's the thing. Addictions, whether to drugs or behaviors, whether it's heroin or fentanyl or cocaine or crystal meth or nicotine or caffeine or alcohol or gambling or sex or pornography or shopping or whatever it is, they're not diseases. They're actually normal responses to abnormal circumstances.
Wow.
So if I ask you this question, normal, but of course they create problems, you know. So let me give you a definition of addiction, right from my book, The Myth of Normal. So addiction is manifested in any behavior in which a person finds some temporary relief or pleasure and therefore craves, but then suffers negative consequences in the long term and doesn't give up. That's what addiction is.
Right.
So it can't be drugs, but it could be a lot of other behaviors. So the first question for me is, not what was wrong with your addiction, but what was right about it. So what did it give you in the short term that you wanted, do you think? I mean, say it made you feel okay. How did you feel without them? Okay, anxiety and panic. So it gave you some peace of mind, some relief of stress. Is that right?
Yes.
That's the nature of addiction. But in the first place, it alleviated your anxiety and your stress, right?
Yes.
Now, in itself, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing.
Okay. So the addiction wasn't your problem. The addiction was your attempt to solve the problem.
Right.
Of emotional distress.
Yes.
And so my mantra is, and basically all addictions are an attempt to escape emotional pain. So my mantra is, don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. Now, if you have to look at people's pain, you need to look at their lives. Stuff happened to them. Stuff happened to you. There's no doubt. I mean, I don't know you, but stuff happened to you. It's totally natural that when you stop the addiction, then the pain and the anxiety that you've been running away from will come flooding in.
Yes.
And that's actually, you know what that is? That's the sign of strength. Because it means that your organism now has the confidence. So then I can tell you two things without knowing anything about your personally. I can tell you two things, okay? When I was in family practice as a physician, I used to see these kids with these stomach aches that nobody could diagnose. There's nothing wrong, they'd say, you know? Yes, there was. But what happened was these kids were the sensitive kids who picked up on all the family stress. And it showed up in their guts. These are called gut feelings. So I can tell you that in your family of origin, A, there was a lot of stress, a lot of conflict, a lot of tension. B, you were a sensitive child who picked up on all this like the canary in the mine. And 3, for all I know, some bad stuff happened to you that gave you all kinds of reasons to be anxious. Now, how accurate would that be?
Completely accurate.
Okay. So the difference is that as a child, and and I know what the answer is going to be because it's always the same, but I can ask you anyway. When you had this tension and anxiety and fear or whatever it was you're experiencing as a child, who would you go to for help? I'm feeling really bad. Please help me.
No one.
Okay.
Myself.
Now, do you have kids?
I don't yet.
Okay, if you had a 4 or 5-year-old who felt really bad, anxious, tight, gut aching, who would you want them to go to?
Me or my wife.
So the parents,
Yes.
which means that you were alone,
Yes.
emotionally alone. Okay, that means there was nobody to go to. But that's unbearable for a child. And all I can do is to suppress those emotions, which then get lodged in the body. Then later on, when you can, you escape into addictions. And naturally, when you stop the addictive behavior, that's gonna come flood back in again, saying, "I'm still here. You need to pay attention to me." You know.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, what you're experiencing is perfectly natural. How is that showing up in your body? Anxiety is a word. What's the actual physical feeling? And I'm going to ask you a question. Now, maybe nothing will come up. Maybe something will come up. Okay, I'm going to snap my fingers and ask a question. And just say whatever comes up. If nothing comes up, don't force it. Don't try to please me, okay? No reason. Okay, I don't need to be pleased. So if nothing happens, nothing happens. But pay attention to that tension, okay? And all your addiction, it wasn't a disease. It wasn't some bad choice that you made. It wasn't some weakness of will. It was just your organism trying to soothe the pain and the anxiety and the fear that were lodged in your system when you were helpless and small and alone. That's all it is.
Wow.
So what you're doing now is you're learning essentially a new language, a new way of communicating with yourself, a new way of relating to yourself. But in the absence of that, of course you try to run away into addiction. And then the rehab helped you give up the behavior and probably helped you gain some degree of self-acceptance.
For sure.
And now you're ready to take the further step of dealing with these emotions that you've been running away from. That's all. It's just a natural process. Right now you're caught in some emotions you don't even want to feel because they're so scary and so daunting. And I get it. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not going to make you wrong for it. But what is it doing for you? Not the same question I asked you. Not what's wrong about it, or what's right about it. What is it giving you? And when I ask that question, people say, well, it numbs my pain, it makes me feel more in control, it connects me to other people, it soothes my stress, it gives me more peace of mind, sense of vitality. I say, well, are those good things or bad things? Yeah, well, those are good things. Well, then the real question is, again, and I make the point in both my books, is not why the addiction, but what happened to you that you feel such stress? What happened to you that you have to numb the pain? What's the pain you're trying to numb? What are you trying to run away from? Well, first of all, it's not a matter of remembering, because they do remember, they just don't recall. Let me make that distinction. Memory, what we call memory, is actually just one kind of memory. It's recall. And recall is where you can call back something consciously. So you can recall what you had for breakfast this morning. You know, you can recall something that happened a year ago or even 20 years ago. That's one kind of memory. But there's another kind of memory called the implicit memory, which is not conscious recall, but the emotional and physical imprints of early experiences. They live in the present. So this tension that you experienced in your belly or in your chest, that's a memory. You may not recall what happened to cause it, but it's a memory. So if I was talking to somebody like that, I'd say, okay, so you don't recall stuff. Tell me what's in your body right now. And then I'd say, how familiar is that feeling to you? They may not recall incidents and episodes, but body states, they're with us in the present. They're memories.
Wow.
I mean, when you talked about the tension in your chest, is there anything in the present moment that should be causing you tension? Point. It's a memory.
Yeah. Right.
That's the memory. It's the body memory. It's called implicit memory. Explicit memory is recall. Implicit memory is the emotional imprints of experiences without the recall.
Wow.
So that's the first point. The second point is, you give me anybody who says I had a happy childhood, I had an addiction, but I had a happy childhood, or I don't remember. It takes me 3 minutes. Literally, it takes me 3 minutes to guide them to understand what actually happened to them. Because actually, they remember more than they think they do. It's just, they're not asked the right questions.
And it's just where our society is too. We've gone so far down this road, and it's just like, how do we, back in the day, it's like, it seemed like if you were like, maybe this is crazy, but if you were like just a small group around a campfire, you could see if somebody was hurting. Everything was right there. You couldn't hide anything.
Not only that, you know what you would do? You'd do ceremonies, healing rituals.
Yeah.
You would drum, you would dance, you would chant, you would shake a stick. It'd be communal.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who I quote in the book, he's a part Lakota physician and psychiatrist. His name is Louis Mel Madrona. And he said in the Lakota tradition, when somebody gets sick, the community says, thank you. Your illness represents some imbalance in our community.
Wow.
You're like the canary in the mine. So your healing is our healing. So let's do this together. Now that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Both scientifically and emotionally. We don't do that. We sort of isolate the individual, then we separate the mind from the body. So we say it's just a brain problem. No, it isn't. It's a life problem.
Yeah.
And that life is lived in an environment, in a multi-generational family, in a certain culture. Let's look at the whole thing. That's all.
Do you think we can start to head more in that direction, or how do you think this changes? Because we are pretty far down the well here.
I think,
because sometimes you even said roar, like sometimes I feel like our whole planet just wants to fucking roar. It's like, I feel like everybody just wants to go in the yard and just scream at the sky. It's like, I don't know. It feels like there's just something trapped in us that is. Does that make any sense, man?
Oh yeah. And it's had some cultural expression as well. What was that movie where somebody yells, I'm fed up and I can't take it anymore, and he starts yelling,
Falling Down? Michael Douglas?
Is that it was? I don't know which movie it was, but it was, somebody just starts yelling, I'm fed up and I can't take it anymore. And everybody starts yelling, I'm fed up, I can't take it anymore. I think there's a deep sense of frustration in this culture. And
I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to be able to take this anymore.
Yeah, it's Network.
Network.
Yeah,
That's a great movie. If you've never seen it, it's a great movie.
I'm mad as hell. No, that was decades ago. I think the level of frustration in our society has increased. Why are people frustrated? Because their needs aren't being met.
Yeah.
And that scream, look, I travel all over the world. I just came back from a 3-week, 6-country tour of Europe.
Wow.
I talked to 12,000 people. That sense of frustration, that sense of longing that we talked about, it's so universal these days.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it? Because that's what it feels like. This, or other people feeling this? That's what I wonder a lot. Or other people feeling this same way?
Well, some people are not, because they escape, and this society is absolutely brilliant at creating escapes through mass media, mass sports, consumption, and so on. But I'll say something here, and this is particularly true of comedians I have found. Some people are just born more sensitive.
That's a great point too, and I have to take that into account. We all do.
And more sensitive means, sensitive is from the Latin word sincere, to feel. Now, some people are genetically born more sensitive. They feel more. That means when things go wrong, they feel it more than the others. So the same thing can happen externally to two different people, but if one of them is more sensitive, they're going to feel it all the more. So it's especially the highly sensitive people who are feeling that scream that you talk about.
Yeah, that's a great point. That it, that's what it's just like. I just feel like we've just gone so far off the path of.
But if I can say something, your sense that we've gone off the path, what in you knows that?
Like what part of me you mean?
What in you, who in you knows that we've gone off the path? It's the part that hasn't gone off the path. It's the part that actually sees. So that, I don't want to create too much doom and gloom here.
No.
There is this self here, there's this trueness here that's never been damaged, never been destroyed. There's nobody's damaged goods that way. It's always in here. It's a question of, can we connect with it?
Right.
You know?
And that, how do we get back to connecting with that sort of thing? Because our society, our culture is not going to do it for us. It doesn't feel like we might have to start with it as individuals. Does that make sense?
We do begin as individuals, but you've probably realized, just for example, in your AA group, there's a community there.
Right.
Who have a lot of shared experiences and who are very vulnerably open in sharing their experiences. And that's a source of support. When you share about yourself, that's a source of support to others. When they share about themselves, that's support for you. So that ultimately, no, we don't have to do it by ourselves. It begins as an individual process, but pretty soon you find that we're not alone.
Yeah. Do you think we can get out of this toxic culture, Gabor? Do you feel like there's a way out of where we are? Or do you feel like that humanity is just...
I believe in human beings.
That's a great statement. I do too.
I believe that there's an essential goodness there, a desire to connect, a desire to belong, a desire to celebrate life. I think we're endowed with those capacities. And as difficult as things may look, and especially these days with this terrible wars going on and the suffering that we've talked about, I still believe that there's so many examples. Everywhere I go, I meet such good people. People are trying to make a difference. People are trying to do their little bit or their big bit to reduce the suffering in the world, to speak the truth, to offer some love, compassion to the world. I really do believe in humans. No, we have the potential to be monsters. We have the potential to be angels. But that good side never totally disappears. Some people, it's covered over so much that they might never get in touch with it. Most people, I think, are quite capable of getting there once they decide that they want to.
Yeah, I think what scares me, is that in order to be a human being, we have to have the present moment, right? We have to be able to still have like the ability to reflect and recognize and think. And our society or our culture has created a lot where we're so many distractions, so that if we never even take the time, if we can be distracted enough from being able to really think or feel, really probably starting with feeling, then we'll be trapped forever in a way.
Well,
does that make sense at all?
It's interesting how you say all these really insightful things, then you keep asking me if it makes sense or not.
Sorry.
Don't apologize.
I can't think and talk sometimes at the same time. I can't feel and speak at the same. It's just.
No, but I'm just telling you that I'm not criticizing. I'm just noticing something.
Yeah. Okay. I don't feel like you are. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We're born as feeling creatures.
Right.
we feel before we think.
Yes.
The feeling apparatus is present in us before we're even born. The thinking apparatus doesn't start developing till much later on.
That's true.
So that if there's a scaffolding of healthy feelings, then our thinking will be aligned with reality. But it's the feelings that we're feelings. We're feeling creatures before we're thinking creatures.
Got it.
So what you said makes absolute sense even from the evolutionary and physiological point of view. Like animals feel, but they don't necessarily think. In fact, they don't think.
Some of them don't.
But without thinking, without feeling, they wouldn't survive.
Right.
You know, and we think we can get by on thinking. We got it backwards.
Yes.
If nothing else, let this be your reminder. You're not broken, you're human. And every struggle has a story behind it. Healing isn't about fixing who you are. It's about understanding why you hurt. So instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Try asking, what happened to me? That shift in perspective could be the first real step toward peace. So be gentle with yourself. Ask better questions. And remember, the goal isn't perfection. It's connection, clarity, and compassion for the parts of you that had to survive.
Healing takes time, and you don't have to do it alone. If this message resonated with you, know that your journey matters. Be gentle with yourself, keep exploring, and surround yourself with support. If you haven't yet, subscribe and join this community. We're in this together. And before you go, comment, "I am healing," to affirm your growth. You are seen, you are valued, and you are not alone.